Okay, so definitely not the game right now with one of the Squid Game worker, so it's like monitoring CCTV basically quickly modifying the CCTV results of precisely that precise exact Squid Game candidate to got right now to before the second Squid Game and timing one the second Squid Game would be basically that Squid Game worker monitoring the CCTV work which was basically can quickly currently they're trying to hide the visuals of that Squid Game candidate and all secretly being escorted to a different location by the other Squid Game workers within the Squid Game building. I'm also saying to be consistent due to why the story mentions that while the majority of the workers in the Squid Game building I'm considering would be most likely the offsprings um, of that precise Squid candidate who received the red note, which should be the precise billionaire that's basically running the game. He would definitely absolutely look at the premise that he would want to compete and he would have definitely been the childhood friend of Sangu and Sangu who might have always lost. Kept losing in their childhood school game, and he might have had that extreme jealousy and then been towards Sangu and Sangu and might have never grew out of that envy and might have, as he grew up, he might have decided he might have decided to create this ultimate stage of the game and precisely eventually trap Sangyeon in a chance to play and to play and honestly decide Sangwon and Sangyeon and basically to defeat them. That's good game. My target is ultimate goal. So to achieve that goal, in order to create the good game building and everything basically such a dangerous studio and everything. He might be realize that he would need a lot of money. So he might have only use also exactly how that says game has right and all of cheating his way into right now winning the second good game. Also, exactly in life as well, he might have only cheat a lot of people into making a lot of money. So that might have been how he might have become a billionaire and might have right now being able to run this game and all that is definitely not very much. So I'm the my preferred image is that all the Squid workers who are within the Squid building, actually within the Squid building, the Squid workers who escort the players and all the Squid workers minus the Squid workers who would be monitoring the CCTV results would be all the offsprings of that process Squid candidate who received the red note who would be the international members. And also when it comes to the Squid workers even that are even monitoring to CCTV results, I'm considering maybe either a bunch of them or at least half of their members of the Squid workers who are monitoring the CCTV might be also offsprings of that process figured out speaking candidate is definitely able to energy. He's running this game is definitely able to return. But I'm thinking still for by the time he it was time for him to run this game at that point, I'm also for the number of speed game this offspring in total might have still not have been enough for him to properly run it's perfectly execute this game. So I'm also he might have only definitely found people who we might have bet would be exercise five people to get for to have for the remaining spin game workers. So those game workers won't be at your off but those will be people from the city who would be the most likely criminals who they might have offered a huge sum of money that for keeping the information about to gain a secret from the public electricity yet at the same time to do the whole CCTV monitoring and everything. We might have trained them to do the whole CCTV monitoring and everything. And he might have bribed them with offer them a lot of money and hence that way and got them to uh, take up the job of this tier one, but it's definitely one of the table. So according to my theory, while the majority of the workers in everyone from the team building will be precisely the offspring of that size billionaire good game candidate who are running this game. And he might have brought up his offspring in uh, such a manner that they would be they might have ended up so extremely cold harder and possibly as for the remaining Squid Game workers behind who would be only Squid Game workers who would be doing I mean the ones who would be doing the CCTV monitoring would be criminals from the city where Sangyeon and also looking so like since they would be criminals, they would also be having that cold-heartedness and that that seeing all these people dying in like the stadium and seeing that between reading the stadium won't be like affecting them at all. It's definitely my opinion. And like Dr. Maybe it would be like one among still Dr. it would be that my the temperature that like this would be the precise reason for like one of the game workers who's like doing like the film game or like to clear for India trying to like hide like the results of like of his like so technically his father who feel like that being a game candidate who receives like ten or not like him being secret the secret next exported to like a separate location of like the studio building. Where like I'm also he would be like informed about like the upcoming games of like the game is definitely very very so like him cheating like they believe the fact that like that the game worker behind like the CCTV monitoring like the CCTV quickly hiding that like would be precisely because of like the majority or like half of like the remaining Squid Game workers, but 30% they are doing like the CCTV monitoring would be like was not like the offspring of like the billionaire Squid Game candidate, and also like them like maybe it might be according to like the orders of like that the billionaire Squid Game candidate that you might have told was like was supposed to like not let them like those criminals who would be like the remaining Squid Game workers who would be like going like CCTV monitoring to not let them know about like things like the billionaire like rigging and playing like the Squid Games. It's also like so like this might be the precise reason for precise Squid Game workers are like quickly hiding like the visuals of like Studian candidate being enough is like being extorted to like from like the remaining Studian workers who's like doing like the CCTV monitoring. Definitely my best revelation. And also my best revelation that like it could be potentially due to like a bunch of like a great number of like Studian candidates who Studian workers who would be like doing like the CCTV monitoring like a great number of them possibly being like not the offspring of like the billionaire Studian candidate and like being possibly being criminals from like the city would be like the profession most likely would be like the most likely the reason for like even like John Ho like the police he had like secretly infiltrated into like the Christian building like him the fact that like him he was like he had taken his mask in front of like the CCTV in his like room and yet like for him to not get found out because it is only due to like the precise studio worker in charge of like doing his exact like Squid Game this section of like Squid Game monitoring I mean like CCTV monitoring might not really be like someone from like a criminal from like the city and hence like there will be that there might have been like the absolute lack of dedication in that whole monitoring job that he might have been doing and hence like he might have genuinely either genuinely not realize like the infiltration of like that police guy into like the Squid Game or like I'm different like the other police that I'm different like he might have totally noticed that he had like since I'm different he would be like a criminal that the Squid Game worker who is doing like the system or would be like like criminal like he might have totally seen like the insult the infiltration of like John and he might have maybe even decided to like keep that a secret and like he might have wanted to like see how far like Jalpo goes is like the other possibility that I'm going to bring. Especially since like precisely when Jalpo had basically taken off his like mask to be within his like role itself like precisely that Squid Game worker who was doing like the monitoring had instantly pressed a button like I'm going to bring. Maybe like he might have that precise Squid Game worker who might have been like a criminal from like this city like might have definitely noticed Janko and still might have decided to like keep that a secret. It's also definitely my vulnerable in that. There will still be like even with like the whole roles that like that might have been given to him by taking up the job of one of the Korean worker. Like there might have been all these roles that basically not obeying them would be like threatening of like job roles were like not obeying their jobs would be like punishment like that and all that. Like still number three maybe probably due to like him being like a cold-hearted criminal that again not purposely being possibly being like a cold-hearted criminal he might have still been fearless definitely member to be able to. So like that might be the possible reason for like impossibly letting like not reporting about like the those like infiltration into like the civilian building is like one possibility one of the possibility that I'm going to bring. And also about like that precise the precise Squid Game workers that around like for at least 400 of them that the precise possible criminal Squid Game worker was like monitoring like among them like one precisely one Squid Game candidate Squid Game worker alone like basically feeling like extremely sad and kind of like disturbed and basically having his like uh, like by all the other civilian worker in that CCTV visuals, like including the over like eating that single civilian worker alone, like basically feeling as if like he was down and basically not eating and having his like headphone to that. That's like basically my consideration that might have been like the precise Squid Game worker that like I was remembering like jump hope in like that very might have heard like either coughing or like crying in like the middle of the night subliminal was right. And the precise reason would be most likely him to like maybe like I'm remembering that like the other person that I was doing. Maybe that single Squid Game worker might actually be not the offspring of not the offspring of like the billionaire student candidate who runs like a studio. So like he might have not brought up in an extremely cold manner, like how like that billionaire student candidate might have brought up all of his like remaining officers. So like he might have been like a criminal from like the city who might have been recruited for like the Squid Game work. And I'm also saying like even though the billionaire Squid Game candidate like running like this again, like he might have recruited that process game worker with this job with like on basis of like the criminal charges that might have that he might have had especially by Wolverine. It might have been an extremely extreme criminal charge, but like but still like he might have been like a like maybe like possibly like one of like the very few student worker or like the single student worker like that might have been even though he might have been like criminally charged and he might have gone to jail like he might have actually been innocent. So like I'm wondering that might have definitely existed that genuine genuinity and kind-heartedness maybe within him. So definitely my remember. So like I'm wondering that might be like the precise Squid Game workup that might have also seen like Jan struggling with like the keys to like Jan like Squid Game rules as well. It's definitely my preference. But like essentially to like kind-heartedness, he might have kept like Jan the suspicion over like Jan secret as well. It's definitely my preference from like the remaining Squid Game workers as well. It's definitely my preference. So like I'm talking about that Squid Game worker who might have been falsely like sent to jail of like criminal charges like might have been what might have happened in like and that might have been like how he might have been like he might have got a report to like to take up like the second job in like this process game building by like the millionaire candidate who runs like this game is definitely not a pyramid. So, like I'm wondering deep down like it might have been like the huge sum of money, like the money offer, like for like the salary of like doing the studio that might have drawn him to like taking up like the studio. But like after entering like the studio, he might have maybe he might even before like taking the studio job, he might have been warned by like the other field that would be like the people who would be like doing like the whole rotation for the process to like to get like the studio members like they might have only want him about like the difference of like experience how maybe like given like a briefing of like how that studio would be like he might have like when seen in like actually face to face like after like extreme dangers and like the deaths and everything like he might have only gotten heartbroken and basically who might have not been able to like was a good game worker alone might have not been able to like handle all that extreme situation that he and that he was forced to be right in front of his eyes. So like that might be the reason for like him possibly like being disturbed like that precise good game worker who would be like genuinely kind of feel alone like possibly being like disturbed and possibly like that might be the reason for like him in like the middle of the night like possibly crying and that might that crying of that precise good game worker might have been what like the Jan might have heard in like the middle of the night. Definitely my preference. So like I'm just bring assistance my account my preference I'm only putting like that exact game worker to definitely be a kind-hearted person who might have been falsely convicted and and of the criminal challenges and and went to jail and with different maybe like there would be like that extreme kind-heartedness within him and so like I was looking maybe eventually for like that game work precisely for him to like eventually secretly and suddenly confront Janto and help Janto out in any eventual future scenarios like also my very question. So like definitely understand that I was like Sangyon like totally suspecting like Sangu having like betrayed like Sangyon from like stopping Sangyon from taking like the umbrella symbol like basically right now the different definitely Sangyo definitely I'm preferring won't be something the kind of person who keeps everything with him. Like I'm preferring definitely Sangyo is the kind of person who like if he have like some sort of disturbance in his mind, he'll be like straight away letting it out and asking like who confronting like the person to whom against whom he has that disturbance of like a doubt or like suspicion against is definitely would be like the kind of character definitely Sangyeon would be. It's definitely one to understand, especially because of that like even though Sangyeon's like Sangyeon had seen like Sangyeon has this like a great friend like I'm putting right now Sangyeon to definitely confront Sangyeon right now. And like I'm putting Sangyeon like only questioning and asking Sangyeon that basically you knew like the umbrella would be difficult to get you kept that a secret from me, didn't you? Like that way, like basically I'm putting Sangyeon only confronting and asking Sangyeon only confronting and asking Sangwoo. And at that point I'm putting Sangwoo being forced to like basically reveal the truth that basically Sangwoo had basically Ambassador initially Sangwoo trying to hide that from Sangyeon, but like Ambassador Sangyeon will be keeping up like that questioning of Sangwoo, and like at that point Sangwoo being forced to like reveal the truth that basically just like that Sangwoo had basically purposefully hidden that knew that basically definitely had a feeling that like the umbrella would be difficult, yet like Sangwoo had kept it a secret from Sangyeon precisely because of like and Ambassador at that point Sangwoo precisely telling Sangyeon that it's like precisely due to like Sangyeon like wanting to like teaming up with like the old man, and that way like that would like greatly sharply reduce the chances of survival in like the studio. So like I was bring at that point that Sangwoo telling Sangyeon that so I don't want to be in your part of your team Sangyeon, like along the lines of the bring Sangwoo finally speaking up. And that was bring like a whole quarrel, like a serious quarrel of a fight between like Sangwoo and Sangyeon happening. So like I was bring from that point on like Sangyeon, that absolute bond feeling of like friendship that like Sangyeon had towards like Sangwoo, like would be broken from that point on. It's definitely my perspective, the scenario that I was doing. It should be only eventually being once again fully restored eventually in like the future. Like it's like the scenario that I'm considering like most likely like from this point on I'm considering like after like the whole fight and the quarrel and I'm considering in that fight and quarrel like I'm going to bring Sangyeon like especially falling out one by one as to like each of the good things that Sangyeon in like the past had done to help out like Sangwoo in like the past to get into like the university and everything like basically uh, Sangyeon like falling out all of that like one by one like basically and that disturbing like Sangwoo as well, and basically still Sangwoo has to shout back at like Sangyeon saying something back at, as well against like Sangyeon as well, and then bring that from that point like the whole that whole disturbance that awkwardness between like Sangwoo and Sangyeon, and like that fight of the quarrel of a fight between like Sangyeon and Sangwoo to happen, and I will bring them to like not talk to each other again from that point on. It's like the scenario that I'm going to bring, and I'm going to bring definitely from that point on. I'm going to bring that whole that feeling of like challenge and like that spirit of like the game. I'm going to bring would be forming within Sangyeon from that point on. It's definitely my favorite, and I'm going to bring from that point on like that a competitive spirit being formed within like Sangyeon towards like Sangwoo to like totally still keep up his team with like the old man and basically to ensure that like he wins up and like of course like Sangyeon would want Sangwoo to die, but yet like Sangyeon would be at that point only thing that Sangwoo would be totally able to take care of himself, and yet like Sangyeon not willing to like give up either, and Sangyeon like fixing in his mind that he would like totally like while maintaining his like team with like the old man in like like in like a determined manner, like saying that if he would definitely be even surpassing like Sangyeon, like determinedly think that he would still surpass like Sangyeon. Uh, that way, I'm going to bring eventually like Sangyeon, like ending up being like the first person to like complete like the third Squid Game and becoming like that Inspector Royal equivalent, like getting like the Inspector Royal equivalent like a position. That would be like it would be precisely Sangyeon that would be getting that position. Especially due to like Sangyeon being like the first to like basically complete like the third game is like the event scenario that I'm going to bring, and that like I'm going to bring like the whole fight between like Sangwoo and Sangyeon, which I'm going to bring would happen like I'm going to bring their whole childhood spirits of like between like Sangwoo and Sangyeon be happening at that point. It's definitely like they would be like taken back to their childhood where like I'm talking maybe like Sangwoo as well as Sangyeon as well might have also like played as a team as well as like might have played in like opposite teams as well. It's definitely my preference. And I'm but still even then like each and every time it might have been Sangyeon's team. So did you like Sangyeon being exceptionally good and like the good chance game like would be always winning. So like I'm think that whole like competitive spirit from like the childhood between like Sangwoo and Sangyeon once again kicking into and basically it would be with that childhood spirit, competitive spirit of playing like the stadium that I was bringing like the Sangwoo and Sangyeon from after their fight would be like and quarrel would be like playing like the upcoming stadium. It's definitely my favorite game also. And I was bringing eventually still I'm also bringing like maybe during like it will be I'm also bringing maybe it will be towards like the end of like the fourth Squid Game or like I'm also bringing it will be towards like the end of the fifth Squid Game that I'm also bringing finally that like for quarrel between like Sangyeon and Sangwoo. Like basically like usually ending and then like restoring like that friendship like that won't have the thing happening like a different was like really happening maybe towards like the end of like the fourth or not technically the end of the game where like I'm about to bring Sangyeon like probably going out of this way in like the middle of like the possibility of like the in like the middle of the Squid Game or play like the Squid Game solely just to like help Sangwoo and that act of like selfless act of like Sangyeon like helping Sangwoo being like the sole reason for like Sangwoo being able to like complete like the first game with like the scenario that I was again that will be how like Sang that change would be happening in like Sangwoo and basically Sangwoo telling sorry to like Sangyeon and that would be how I would bring it today for like that friendship to be like restored. Exactly in the scenario that I was around the second half of the game. So certainly my attention right now as like Sangyeon was like comforting Sangwoo telling that the choosing of the example I was totally his fault. Like about it is still definitely Sangyeon might have definitely right now realized that basically Sangwoo doesn't want to play as a team with like Sangyeon. It's definitely my good friend. So like I'm bring so it's only due to that absolute bond of friendship that like Sangwoo and when Sangyeon had like the past couple of the pregnancy, maybe like right now, also pregnant, Sangyeon might have not wanted to like upset Sangwoo. So like I'm considering it might have been definitely Sangyeon that might have definitely forgiven Sangwoo after like right now Sangyeon realizing that like Sangwoo not wanting to like play with like Sangyeon as a team and like definitely Sangyeon right now will be well fully aware that like it was like Sangwoo like stealthily betrayal. Then they're trying to betray Sangyeon is definitely my consideration. Yet like Sangyeon right now would have decided to like keep it like to not upset like Sangwoo and like let Sangwoo play the exact way he wishes them and not be like an obstacle or like a burden to like Sangwoo would be like along the lines that Sangyeon might have realized that decided right now is definitely my good game. Like I will take from this point on definitely Sang from like the very next game from like third game itself like I was trying Sangyeon to like not listen at all to that anything that Sangwoo would be like telling Sangyeon is definitely my favorite. And I'm also bring like Sangwoo we have that kid so like I'm also bring Sangwoo before like the third skill game I'm also bring maybe like Sangwoo genuinely trying to like help Sangyeon but like and such thing something is like the scenario that I was doing but like I'm definitely bring like Sangyeon in like exactly like speaking to like Sangwoo exactly along the lines of this like Sangwoo would be speaking to like Sangyeon like while hiding a lot of things like basically while keeping up a fake smile and hiding a lot of things and speaking to like Sangyeon, like exactly like how Sangwoo had done that to like Sangyeon. And that time I was bring like the very same manner like I was bring Sangyeon from this point on would be like dealing with like talking back to like Sangwoo is like the scenario that I was doing. So like I was bring Sangwoo before like the next third studio member to bring like Sangwoo and like right before like the studio Sangwoo because of the studio like only trying to genuinely help like Sangyeon and such to something like Sangyeon is like the possible scenario or like about the that I'm considering right now but like I'm considering Sangyeon totally telling Sangwoo that like no that making some sort of excuse to like not listen to that and not to what like Sangwoo would be telling to Sangyeon. It's like the scenario that I'm in. Sangyeon would be doing like the total opposite to like what Sangwoo would be suggesting in like the game of like the scenario that I'm going to bring. And that I'm going to bring to like a result in like Sangyeon getting into like once again getting into like serious trouble. It's like the scenario that I'm going to bring. So like it's exactly like how Umbrella was like the most difficult among like the 4 or 5 symbols in like the second game. I'm going to bring like even in like the third game as well. I'm going to bring solely due to like Sangyeon taking his own decision was the bring yet like I'm also bring unlike in like an unlucky manner like what Sangyeon that would be ending up being like the wrong decision and once again Sangyeon would be getting like the more difficult of like the options among like the options that what no matter how like the third game would be like I'm also bringing the third game as well possibly having like a lot of options to like pick and then also bringing that like Sangyeon taking his own decision and making his own pick among like the options and that resulting in like Sangyeon once again getting like the hardest path to like complete that third game. Yet like I'm also bringing Sangyeon still overcoming that odds. Yet like Sangyeon like only like to like Sangyeon, and I'm also bring exactly like how Sangyeon had basically figured out like the strategy of like and came up with like strategy of like licking like the honeycomb, and that way like due to like Sangyeon like finding out like such a strategy that the old man with dementia as well being able to like pass like the second studio members to bring in like a similar manner like in like even in like the studio members to bring even though like the odds would be only stacked against like Sangyeon, that Sangyeon once again getting like the most difficult task to complete like the third studio, and still during Sangyeon eventually coming up with like some sort of a solution which ends up most likely the old man as well maybe that totally like old man as well trying to copy that during like the third school game as well, but like I'm going to bring like still I'm going to bring like towards the end of like the third school game I'm going to bring like the old man mostly like like the scenario that I'm going to bring like the old man with the mentor not being able to like complete like the third school game is the like scenario that I'm going to bring while definitely I'm going to bring Sang Leon and Ali, all of them would be definitely completing the first video. It's like a scenario that I was looking, and I'm going to it would be at that point that like while Sang Leon would be like extremely disturbed and sad for like the rest of like the old man. At that point, I'm going to bring when like Sang Woo would be trying to like console and comfort console like Sang Leon. At that point would be when I'm going to bring Sang Leon would be only bursting out on like Sang Woo and like calling out Sang Woo on that game with his like stealthy betrayal during like the second Squid game of like Sangyeon and all that. Like and that particular maybe would being like the point where like the whole awkward of like a fight quarrel and that fight is being formed possibly between like Sangyeon and Sangwoo at that point is also like change about the scenario that I'm looking at right now and not doing. So like according to my person to them doesn't totally protect that basically like the next good game single school game candidate who had basically received like the secret right note like revealing like what the second school game was like. Basically that was a game candidate in terms of trying to directly be like the billionaire as well as the childhood friend of like Sangwoo as well as Sangyeon who would be like the precise billionaire that would be like right now running like the entire Squid game in the correct manner with like this intent definitely would be to like for him to like only trick and fool like the remaining Squid game candidates with like the huge piggy bank last piggy bank huge prize money which would be definitely his own the money of like that precise billionaire this Ambassador definitely he would be only absolutely or confident thing that basically with like him playing like the Squid game in like a right manner, he could be definitely eventually himself that definitely would be ending up winning the Squid game and that way like absolutely him not losing any money either like basically this will be his plan. But like I'm looking eventually definitely for like both Sun Woo as well as Sang Kyon like basically like even with like him like the size billionaire studio candidate like with like who's like running like the studio even with like I'm bring like him like rigging and playing like cheating steadily cheating and playing like each and every single one of like the upcoming studios still I'm different with like Sankyon like basically eventually totally still totally surpassing his performance and like even beating like the studio even before that billionaire and eventually by the time like Sang Gion would be like most likely nearing like the and maybe Sang as well would be along with like Sang Beyond even at that point is certainly very good for him. So like I'm looking maybe I'm looking eventually to be by the time like Sang Woo and Sang Beyond like if Sang Woo and survives to the completion of like the first game, then at that point I'm looking by the time like Sang Beyond and Sang Woo will be completing the fifth game. So definitely like the fifth game I'm definitely writing like Sang Beyond definitely to be like performing even better than like the first billionaire game candidate who would be like cheating his way into like completing that Squid game. Yet like I'm still even like the Squid game members different on like performing even better and even completing like the Squid game even before like that size billion of Squid game candidate. It's like the scenario that I was bring. And at that point I was bring like him taking this like rigging and like cheating of matches like Squid game playthrough to like the next level at that point by was bring like him after like the Squid game like the size food like that means that will be offered to like Sangwoo and Sangyeon and also like I'm remembering in that food like I'm remembering definitely him most likely maybe like not poisoning but like adding some additives to like the most likely the food of precisely Sangwoo and Sangyeon. Precisely because like I'm remembering it would be like eventually I'm remembering like Sangwoo and Sangyeon like being among like the best players of like this game and San beyond definitely surpassing like the billionaire Squid Game candidate who would be like again playing like this it's like the Squid Game still and considering Sang Yeon like surpassing in like multiple Squid Games and still is like the scenario that I'm going to bring. So like precisely in order for him to like ensure that like the billionaire like Squid Game candidate definitely wins like the Squid Game. I'm also like him going through the extreme extent of cheating of like basically adding some sort of like additives after like the Squid Game of like Sang were like put that way to that using that additives to like totally affect like Sang Gyeon's like performance in like the Squid Game and like him even going through that level of extent of like a rigging of like the Squid Game. Yet like I'm also even in like the Squid Game, even with all that extreme disadvantages, I'm still something like Sang Gyeon to like definitely still surpass and win like that even like the Squid Game before like the even before like perform even better than like that billionaire Squid Game candidate who would be trying to win even in like game as Squid Game as well. He will be like once again on top of like the adding like the additives in like Squid like on top of that he was trying to do like more of like a cheating in that Squid Game. Yet like with all that attempt like I was just hand effort like I was still losing to like Sangyeon even in like the six two games, like the scenarios that I'm about to bring. And at that point, I'm about to bring like definitely for like that risk to happen. And I'm about to bring at that point like him deciding giving the orders to like still giving the orders to like not release like the candidates who have even completed like the six two game. And also bring like at that point like the risk to happen like most likely happen at that point with like Sangyeon and like maybe Sangwoo as well survived to that point like them all getting that ultimate shocking twist where like at that point, I'm probably putting at 1% that I'm also putting is for like the precise like triangle like leader of like the or like I'm from the front man at that point show himself like showing up and him like setting up a new like new rules like in an unfair manner that basically the Squid Games will still continue to there will still six more Squid Games like basically that way like them the frontman doing as he pleases according to like the stealthy order of like that size billion Australian candidate. And I'm going to bring that because that time to like play like the next set of six good games in like an even more operative and cheating manner to working to like only ensure that basically him, at least at that point would be able to like defeat Sangyeon and basically so that like him like won't so that like he won't be losing his like money either and he will be getting that ultimate satisfaction and like that absolute desire to like get revenge on Sangyeon by defeating Sangyeon in like this like extremely dangerous Squid Game which like might have been that absolute desire of like wanting to get revenge on Sangyeon that he might have had even from his like all the way from like that billionaire Squid Game billionaire Squid Game candidate who's running like the Squid Game even from his dad was definitely like living scenarios that emotional on the bring and so like the name of the impression right now as well, like what exactly like the woman who badly wants to like join like the team of like the aggressive guy like this billion. Actually like what exactly he would have right now from this point to like the aggressive guy, but definitely uh my position is definitely that if he would desperately trying to like please that aggressive guy solely so that like he would like totally form an actual team with her players of the game as a team. Which I'm she would only think that like if they work together like they would definitely have like great odds of like as like a team they would definitely have like great odds of like completing like the games up ahead is definitely my most favorite. And even though I'm considering like that besides woman would be like definitely genuine about like and I'm considering have to also have feel like maybe like taking quite like enjoys like like as well towards like a on like a personal level as well, especially my program. And so like and she would be like genuine about her like bonding her like allegiance with like that the aggressive guy and Amber Supreme she would be like Amber Supreme has to be like the mindset of wanting to be like totally loyal to him and helping out like all throughout like the Squid Game. But like Amber Supreme in the case of the aggressive guy, like he will be definitely hiding his true intent and he will be like only like planning on like seeing this as like a good opportunity to like basically take have the to like join his team as like an opportunity to totally take advantage of him and totally use up in such a way that basically eventually like he will be able to like even if like a situation comes eventually like the future experience where like where like he will be that is he will be already like right now planning as if to like say like how in like the personal life of like that is like he used to like betray like the people around him and also he would be like definitely planning like he would be also planning on like totally taking advantage or eventually betraying her for him to like definitely move on further into like the experience if like such a situation even happens in like this game, which will be with like such a mindset that I'm also supporting like him would be like actually teaming up with her before like the third Squid Game is like the scenario that I'm supporting. And that's like one scenario that I'm also definitely supporting to happen. I'm definitely supporting like that woman to like definitely literally definitely die in one of the Squid Games. And I'm also supporting her death would be precisely due to like the betrayal of like, the aggressive guy. It would be absolutely shocking for her. It's also like the eventual scenario that I was just remembering another direction. And right now, so like right now, as for like what he will be like whispering to the aggressive guy, it would be definitely because of her feeling concerned for like the aggressive guy because of like him wanting more food that I was bringing like the such idea that she would have most likely whispered to the aggressive guy to like precisely target like the gently target like the Squid candidates who are like who would be like submissive in like but to precisely bully them and like steal away like the they would have got up to eat and basically that way for like the aggressive guy to like be able to have more food would be like the idea that like right now like that woman would have like right now simply just to like the aggressive guy. It's definitely my preference and I'm considering like the aggressive guy doing exactly that and I'm considering the aggressive guy forcefully like maybe like scaring like the abused Indian candidate and basically stealing the forcefully taking like uh, the X that they would have received and then considering like them being like forced to like that way being forced to like them like possibly complaining to like that people in like the red uniform at that point and then considering them not getting injured at all and so like them having to like play that way having to play like the third good game while when staying hungry and basically that able to bring only affecting their performance in like the third game as possibly able to definitely those percent give guidance from home and the aggressive guy is stealing like the food from bring that food only definitely not be surviving like the third game is like the scenario that able to only bring another more into. That's definitely my personal impression right now with like the aggressive guy right now attacking like the poor guy who didn't get any food like I'm bring right now. Right now and that's bring will be like the point where like Sangyeon won't be able to like contain himself or like keep himself from reacting from not reacting especially when right everybody else will be just probably just watching like the aggressive guy attack that poor guy and I'm about to bring like definitely Sangyeon right now to probably step in boldly. I'm about to bring to the Sangyeon alone that will be stepping in and stopping like the aggressive guy. And at that point, I'm about to bring the aggressive guy totally attacking Sangyeon. And I'm about to bring right then definitely I'm about to bring like that girl who had stolen like the 4 million from Sangyeon. Like especially because like she have like that much of like a dislike towards like that figure. I'm about to bring her as well to totally step in and her to like help Sangyeon stand beside Frank, like the scenario that I'm like, when this incident I'm preparing would be like, I'm preparing such an incident to precisely happen right now. And this incident would be like marking that point where like that absolute enmity would be point between like the aggressive guy and his team against like Sanjion and his team. That's definitely my concern. And I'm also this would be also the point where like I'm going to bring that Jerry stole like the 4 million from Sanjion, deciding to like join like Sanjion's team as well. I'm going to bring would be happening at this point. That's definitely my concern. Because actually would be totally appreciating that absolute boldness and like that pure heartedness and kind heartedness of Sanjion and that boldness of Sanjion in like basically stepping in the fact that Sanjay was like the only person to like step in to like save that innocent guy being attacked by the aggressive guy. It's definitely my personal impression. I'm considering maybe like I'm considering like the old man might have not eat like his like share of like the food like the egg or the like his drink. He might have not completed it, finished it. So like I'm considering at that point like the old man possibly maybe even sharing like his bit of like food with like those precise people who lost their phone due to like the aggressive guy and his team like taking seconds. It's like the initial scenario that I'm looking at. So like I'm looking this would be like forming like that this would be that incident that I'm looking will be like marking that absolute enmity and or competitiveness of like an enmity kind of like a villainous kind of like a competitiveness from the aggressive guy and his team towards like Sangyeon and his team and like them so badly and desperately wanting to like ensure that Sangyeon and his team uh, dies as soon as the possible in like the third Squid Game and them don't even attempting like due to that for that whole extreme it is like an enmity towards like Sangyeon and their team members bring them totally in like the third Squid Game like them while like the crucial task would be to like basically win the third Squid Game like to win like the Squid Game like still able to bring them also due to their extreme enmity towards like Sanjay and his team, like them also even midway between like the Squid Game, them also attempting to like basically trying to like make like Sangyon's team in which like Sangyon like the old man as well as that girl would be like maybe Ali as well would be like them like trying to like force like Sangyon and his team to like do midway between like the first two games. So I'm even attempting in such a manner, not only in like the first two games, but also in like the games uh, up ahead from like the third Squid Games. It's definitely also like the scenario. And I'm afraid each time they would be like the guy and his team would be attempting to do this like I'm thinking each time like the aggressive guy would be likely losing one of his like gang member from his team. That's definitely like the scenarios that I'm like each like Squid Game is like the scenario that I'm slowly putting in a game pressure. Like the main game pressure right now is that will be that the upper size game candidate who see like Jared, the most of the tax could be candidate testing the member information that like he would be the player than brilliant the billionaire to like running like this game and I was asking like how he might have became like a billionaire and also essentially through that the through like organ selling is definitely like a contribution like it was through that in such a manner that like he might have totally like became like a billionaire. Definitely my personal impression. So like I'm considering like that as well to like make a lot of money that way as well. Would be like definitely like the intent, actual intent behind like the studio as well. Not of and I'm preferring the even though like that his ultimate goal for right now, even to the person would be like this like absolute desire to like get revenge on like Sangyo to by defeating Sangyo and winning the Crystal game and while like in the process of defeating Sangyo to like basically also witness Sangyo dying. Like this would be like though this would be like ultimate goal like in like that process like for him to like make even more money would be like also like the intent his secondary intent as well behind like running like this good game as well. This is definitely also my through the organ selling is definitely my preference. So like I was definitely right now with like the that precise one Squid Game worker right now, like totally like acting like nervous, like and like kind of like a young child, like basically him like acting in such a manner that basically like hurry that he wants to hurry, and him telling like that Squid Game candidate to like hurry that he want to that bedtime would be like real soon. Definitely, my brother represent that like that Squid Game worker with like the triangle mask, like him definitely would be like the offspring of that side billionaire Squid Game candidate is definitely my brother represent that she would definitely be like the offspring of him, and it would be like precisely in that precise vision of Indian candidate that might have set up this like that might have brought up his like offspring in such a manner that like like and by falsely brainwashing them into making them think like that life itself is like and that's to gain with like what matters in life. I don't know basically like him like might have brought up his like offspring in such a manner that breaking of rule would be like punishable by death. And basically along such lines that basically it would be especially because of that reason that even while like it would be emphasized billionaire who's like a billionaire Squid Game candidate who's right now present right with that precise Squid Game that says billionaire Squid Game candidate who's running like the Squid Game even while he's right now present right beside like the Squid Game worker with like the triangle mark like still for that person to be a worker with like the triangle mask to like and only worry about like not making it in time for like bedtime back to his room. Precisely due to like that being how much like that whole brainwashing having affected him that basically even while that Squid Game worker would be like the offspring of like that billionaire Squid Game candidate like even while he would be like when he would even while that this billionaire Squid Game candidate would be the person running like the Squid Game still like the brainwashing and bringing up office like often might have caused such an effect that like they were so afraid of like breaking the rules and that would be the reason for like him like that because game worker with like the triangle not like being so afraid and wanting to like hurry back to his like bed in time. This is definitely my good representation. Like he would be still fearing like the possibility of like him dying if he doesn't make it back to like back to his room and back to his bed in time. That's definitely my personal impression. At the same time, like that said, student candidate who received like the red note, who's like currently right now doing like the procedure for this like organ training, and basically, so like would definitely for things to see in the the impression would be like that, but would be a candidate, but would be precisely the general that would be running like this game, and it would be precisely because of all the reason that I'm referring. While like even that Squid Game worker with like the triangle mask is like so afraid of like wanting to like get back to bed in time like that says Squid Game candidate being not at all worried at all would be precisely because of him being like the precise person running like the game. Definitely my personal impression. So like definitely my personal impression right now also like when exactly that precise game candidate who's like running like fantastic like this game like I'm wondering like when exactly he would be like stealthily would be planning on not being joining with like the stealthily with like the remaining Squid Game candidates. Possibly it would be precisely not in like the middle of the night when possibly it would not definitely not be a scenario where like in like the middle of the night like if you would be like stealthily trying to sneak back into like the whole huge room where like all the studio candidates are sleeping. Like I'm preferring that to definitely not be like the scenario. Like I'm preferring like to maintain that absolute stealth, like stealthily like joining back into like the remaining studio candidates. I'm preferring him would be most likely joining back with, along with like the remaining studio candidates, especially while they would be like they'll be like going up to like attend lectures again in that role like a room where like there's like a whole lot of like stairs like I'm considering that room as well will be precisely built in such an architecture and in such a manner just for so that like he would be like that precise game candidate who would be like running like this game just so that like he would like stealthily get stealthily separate from like the remaining good game candidates and do all these procedures and like even get like additional information as to like what like the upcoming Squid Games would be. And so that like he could like steadily join back with like the remaining Squid Game candidates in like a stealthy manner would be like the precise reason for like this kind of like confusing kind of like a room with like all this great number of staircases, which being like the precise room through which like the each of like the Squid Game candidates would be attending that they would be passing right before attending each of like the Squid Games. So definitely would be like built in such a manner and like the procedure would be of moving through every Squid Game would be precisely through such staircase like confusing staircase like location would be precisely due to like this solely due to like making to make things convenient for like the Squid Game candidate to be like the person running like this Squid Game. That's definitely my personal impression. So definitely I'm also running like this time as well I'm also running like precisely during that all the great number of the Squid Game candidates will be like together like moving as a like a line in that precise staircase like I'm preferring great number of staircases to be precisely then I'm preferring like at least for like that millionaires to get candidates to like join up with them and I'm preferring at that point like definitely once again like him being able to like told them and trick them and absolutely no one finding out about it when he would be like steadily joining up back with like the remaining 50 candidates like the scenario that I'm preparing for even before like the third Squid Game but like I'm preparing precisely after like the third Squid Game I'm preparing once again like him to continue with this like procedure of him stealthily like after like completing like the third Squid Game and once like the Squid Game candidates will be returning back to like the airport the Squid Game room like at that point once again I'm preparing like this uh, person who's running like this game like that could be candidate once again is simply exported to like this precise room to like once again continue this like procedure. But like I'm preparing like the next time at after like the third school game I'm preparing right before like the fourth school game once he would be like once again simply trying to return back to joining among like the among the remaining school game candidates. It would be at that point that I was and I'm preparing especially because of like by then like a lot of like, the school game candidates would have died by the Swiggy candidates like the total number would be like greatly reducing by the time the third Squid Game would be over, especially because I'm preferring like the third Squid Game to be a whole lot extremely difficult when compared to like the first and second Squid Game, especially because of like the third Squid Game due to like the person running like the Squid Game would be only having that memory, it would have only created all these Squid Games based on his like memories of like the Squid Games he played from like the day to like the third Squid Game. The combination of like the third Squid Game would be like seen as like would be built up in such a manner like as if that like it's like a checkpoint like place. So like I'm preferring precisely because of that like the third Squid Game is like the Squid Game that like leads that can get like the Squid Game candidates to like that checkpoint like location above the preferring precisely because of that like the third Squid Game would be extremely difficult, greatly more difficult when compared to like the first and second Squid Game. So definitely I was remember so like especially because of this like after like the third Squid Game like a lot of Squid Game candidates won't be like making it to like completing like the third Squid Game and precisely because of this like I'm preparing like right before like the fourth Squid Game would be starting when I'm preparing once again like this emphasize villain Squid Game candidate would be still they trying to like join up with like the remaining Squid candidates like at that point like the Squid candidates number would be like far lower like I'm preparing at that point only for like the precise girl who stole like the 4 million from Sangyeon like her being like her preparing would be like the first person who would be like first noticing this like whole rigging of like the Squid Game happening with like connecting to just the one single Squid Game candidate, you know. Like I'm preparing like her being like the first person to like notice that and her I'm preparing to notice that precisely after like probably noticing precisely as she would be on her way to like attempting like the fourth Squid Game. Like it would be at that point is when I was preparing her to like notice this as well. It's like the second scenario that I'm also trying to bring and fully game person then 60 goals that like that precise single food game candidate who receive like the red not will be like the precise billionaire will be like running like the entire game with this good game. Ambassador for that person ambassador just like image in front of like the public would be as that of like a doctor. If you would be having like two like images like one like the fake and false image that you will be having in front of like the public like and about everything to not be that image to not be like that of like a popular image. Like he would be like serving as like a doctor in like the city where like the Sangyeon and Sangwoo would be and he would be like working as like a he would be having like a job as like a doctor. That would be like his face in front of like the public while like deep down like he would be like he would be that criminal who would be like stealthily doing the whole organ trading and organ selling and all that like that would be what he would be like doing when like in like the absence of like the public like this would be exactly what he would be doing and it would be through this means that he would have made all the money to basically build like the Squid Game and everything. And like the film of the Squid Game production right now with like the Squid Game worker with like the triangle master right now giving orders to like the Squid Game candidate who got like the red note like everything. So definitely my Squid Game production right now is definitely that like that the Squid Game candidate who got the red note is doing like the organ procedure and everything. That's the game candidate won't be like the billionaire who's running like the studio. It's definitely my go-to representation as for right now. It's definitely my go-to. Hence why like he's being forced to like even take orders from like studio work of like the triangle mask is definitely my best friend. So like I'm also like still like the front man definitely won't be like the person who's like running like the actually running like and doing the funding and who might have created like the who might have bought like the studio man and that might have created like the studio building and everything definitely is that definitely won't be like the front man. Like the front man would be like the head who might have been only assigned to like taking charge of like the and who with that task to like ensure that the street game the narrative in the street game takes place exactly according to the wish of like the billionaire who would be like the person who would be like the underrated character who would be like only running like the studio is definitely my person. That possessed billionaire definitely that underrated character would definitely be like the might have definitely been like back to the childhood might have definitely been like the childhood friend of like Sangyeon and Sangwoo with like that extreme jealousy towards like Sangyeon and Sangwoo of like him not ever being able to like win like the Squid Game is definitely my top three ever. So like this would all be like current Squid Game would definitely I'm still thinking about the time would be just would be one the highest priority for like the person running to Squid Game would be getting the revenge on Sangwoo and Sangyeon and having them die watch them die in this like extreme during the Squid Game. It's like my taking the reaction right now like him and I'm going to bring that student and I'm going to bring that childhood friend of like Sangyeon and Sangwoo who might have won that athlete to get like so might have never grew out of like that jealousy towards like Sangwoo and Sangyeon and might have wanted to get revenge on Sangwoo and Sangyeon might have definitely not wanted to like participate in like this game and defeat Sangwoo and Sangyeon in like this game but like he might have just wanted to like kind of like in a sadistic manner to watch like Sangyeon and Sangwoo the precise two childhood friends who are basically like always defeated them in like the childhood game in like the past, like basically them only struggling for their life and then eventually dying in like this game. For him to like see that would be like his way of like getting revenge on Sangwoo and Sangyeon, especially when they're he might have actually that is like everything to like ensure that like Sangwoo eventually ends up like totally like even with like Sangwoo getting like growing in his like career still like he might have definitely that billion of childhood fund might have definitely put the playing like that absolute role in like stealthily ensuring that like even Sangwoo ends up becoming death ridden and that way he potentially eventually trap Sangwoo into like the Squid. And the case of like Sangyeon as well, like I was saying, like even Sangyeon as well getting into like the whole horse race betting and everything even that habit being formed within like Sangyeon, like while I'm considering like definitely the old man with dementia would be definitely Sangyeon's father. And he might have exactly like how like during that horse playground where like the four symbols of like star, circle, and like little triangle and umbrella, like while like that precise person wearing like other wearing like the cap who was like serving those like desserts for like the kids might have definitely be Sangyeon's like father steadily by wearing the cap like wanting to like meet Sangyeon without Sangyeon's like mother finding out like uh, and also but still like he might have ensured that like and like still thinking about the mention that like the whole separation of like Sangyeon's mother from Sangyeon's father might have only happened due to Sanjay's father, this old man, like you mentioned, like was having created a lot of debt, and it's definitely why the Surya impression. So, yet like I'm going to bring like Sanjay, like eventually forming like the habit of betting and horse racing, betting and all that. Like might have definitely not at all had like the influence of like Sanjay's father at all. It's definitely my opinion. Sanjay's father might have been drowning in that aspect since that after like Sangyeon's mother and Sangyeon like left him, that basically he might have only ensured that to meet Sangyeon with that aspect and totally to ensure that Sangyeon doesn't through him never falls into the habit of horse racing. Definitely horse racing dating is definitely my favorite. So like I'm referring for like Sangyeon eventually still developing that habit of like betting for like the horse racing and everything. Like basically that might have the reason, the precise culprit behind that might have totally played a major role in like eventually Sangyeon developing such a habit of like betting. Might have definitely been also this precise villain who's like running like Thunder Wind Cap who like would be like the child friend of Sangyeon and Sangu like that absolute jealousy to them like him as secret of that him might have really trying to target Sangyeon and Sangu. And that way like might have got really got like Sangyeon to still they might have only gotten Sanjeevan to like form the habit of that horse racing betting and like eventually that way to like trap Sanjeevan as well along with that go into the level of the games definitely might be very impression. So definitely my very impression that like even though like the primary ultimate goal of like the person running this game would be definitely to get his revenge on Sanjeevan and Sanju to watch them die or something that then like the Squid Game. But I think still that's like secondary goal. It would be only secondary goal that basically just current organ trading and organ selling so like this game would be only his like secondary goals definitely not the like so like I'm different definitely like what he might have done especially with like even right now while like with first game candidate to receive like the red note like basically him even while taking orders from the gym worker with like the triangle market, it's still like him that's the game candidate asking like the game worker as to like what the next game would be and him like the game worker while he shows the like basically that the game candidate like ask him as if like you sure like basically that would totally means that basically that if I game worker might have definitely before like this the entire like Squid Game event started like before that itself like certainly the person running like the Squid Game might have recruited bunch of doctors to doctors like depth ridden extremely depth ridden like doctors like he might have certainly targeted them and might have definitely gotten them to play a ring Squid Game like about the ring he might have got eventually got on their consent to like actually play a red Squid Game. It's definitely my favorite. So like among like the Squid Game candidates, the present Squid Game candidates in that building, like I'm assuming a lot of them might be like at least like I'm going to bring maybe more than 10 among them might be actually doctors, especially my favorite. And like it would be precisely the fact that they have like the in like the real world they have like the job of like being a doctor that might have been like the sort reason for like them precisely being selected and like most likely the person running like this game using it run one might have made them like practice each and play each and every single of like one of like the good games. It's definitely my good game and hence why exactly like this game candidate with like the red note who received like the red note would be knowing like the on seeing like they would be knowing like what exactly would be like the next experience. Like I'm wondering like there will be remaining doctors as well would be among like this game candidates whom as well will be knowing as to doctors among like this game can multiple doctors among like this game candidates who might have already beforehand itself might have like played out all the practiced out all the 6 games is definitely my favorite. So like among them, like as especially a doctor being selected for me, precisely for like the person running the billionaire running like this game for him to carry out his like organ trading and organ selling like stealthily through like this game is definitely with that and then like this definitely my favorite. So like I'm wondering among like the multiple doctors that would be like person that Squid Game candidates, among like the Squid Game candidates, like he might have already played like the Squid Game and then each of the six game because beforehand it's by so to like they might have right now selected like one among them and one among the doctors to right now do like the whole procedure. It's definitely my preference and that is person to be like the Squid Game candidate who received like the red notes definitely my preference. So like I'm preferring solely due to like him having like a profession of being like a doctor in like the real world. And that way, him being able to like help out with like the market trading and selling would be like the sole reason for sole reason for basically him being given that red note. It's definitely my take very much. But like I'm considering especially with like the first studio marker with like the triangle mark of them like not seeing seeing still interacting with that the first studio candidate in not a manner as if he's like extremely precious to them. Like I'm assuming that would be precisely due to like the most likely having like multiple doctors among like the student candidates. So like I'm assuming it would be precisely because of that reason that that is a student worker even telling that the student candidate that he would have to like survive it. Like it's a responsibility for him to like survive the night in that precise room where like all the student candidates would be. And basically them even talking about like the student workers even talking about like the survival of like the cricketers and all that would be precisely with their absolute or confident thing that basically all of the doctors among like, the candidates, among like the student candidates will definitely be surviving because surviving like the student essentially because of them already having attempted like and practice like each of like students definitely one of the limits. So like I'm going to bring it like even with I'm also bring they might have also given all this will be like pre-planned. So like I'm also bring like each of those doctors might have been perfectly even like the perfectly as to like how exactly to like handle might have been even informed even beforehand as for like the eventual scenario of like there being like a fight among like the 15 candidates like basically to we might that they might try to like clear out like the weakness in between like the screen. So like at that point like the possibility of like them giving left foot to like the Squid Game candidates, and that way like a fight breaking between the Squid Game candidate room, and that way like when such a if such a situation happens, in order for how exactly for them like these exact doctor Squid Game candidates how they should they have to like survive in such a fight if such a fight even happens in that Squid Game room candidates room and all that like they might have even been when being trained beforehand, it's definitely my personal temperature. So like maybe this might be like the reason for like the careless kind of like an attitude by like the studio worker with like the triangle mask like him like basically telling that was a studio worker a studio candidate who received like the right note telling him that basically like that the along the lines of like his survival is like his responsibility and basically just giving like the brief advice that in order to survive to like stick to this product. It's definitely my good reference. It will certainly because of like them most likely having like multiple doctors among Indian candidates and then that way like not seeing that the first candidate who received like the red note as like being absolutely valuable and indispensable to them. It's definitely my secondary impression. So definitely my secondary impression is that like it wouldn't just be in like the second Squid Game alone that basically the for like the 4 or 5 symbols of like the star square, the star triangle circle, and like the umbrella connected to like the childhood memories of like Sangyeon, Sangwoo, and like the old man, it's like they mentioned, would be like Sangyeon's father. Like I'm also bringing like even more, like I'm also bringing even the third and fourth and all of the games up ahead would be connected, like would be having tiny details connecting to like the childhood memories of Sangyeon, Sangwoo, as well as like the old man with dementia. It's definitely my personal theory and prediction. So like I'm also bringing like it's a repeated like with the thing of details from like the childhood of like Sangwoo and Sangyeon about the like eventually making them kind of like aware as to like basically what the possible and then from that only happen in like the very distant future. And the very most likely would be like Sangyeon that would be like most likely eventually shockingly finding out, realizing like the possibility of like basically the person planning like this after witnessing more and more details, short details in like each and every single one of like the communist game of details connecting to their childhood memories. Like at that point, I'm also maybe like I'm bringing the still to the Sangyeon would think like the first person to like shockingly realize the possibility of the person running like this game possibly being like one of their childhood friends uh, in like the process. Which is basically like I mentioned to the Christian future scenario that I'm also referring. That way I'm considering to be through most likely not even I'm considering Sangwoo, even though Sangwoo has like better memory than Sangyeon, I'm still I'm considering it to be most likely through Sangyeon that like even Sangwoo would be probably might be probably figuring out that finding out and realizing the possibility of one of like their childhood friends possibly being like the person running like the entire game. It's also like an individual scenario, just a bit of scenario that I was going to bring in a version. Like I had a flavor with the version right now that like things like stick with like the strongest being like what says advice that says studio worker for like the triangle mask like even giving to that precise studio candidate to receive like the red note I'm also bring like him like the precise game candidate that will be doing it like stealthily and doing like absolute best to eventually form a bond of friendship with like that safe aggressive guy, and I'm going to bring him to like actually even succeed in that like eventually like the scenario that I'm going to bring. So like I'm going to bring eventually definitely a team being formed with like the aggressive guys team, like definitely that game candidate will be like eventually ending up teaming up, getting teamed up with like the will end up like teaming up with like the aggressive guys team. Definitely my business and in order to like gain like the aggressive guys like interest and also bring him as well doing something like that. So it could give Angela just when doing something like in like a villainous manner. And that way like that would be like the strategy I'm considering that he will be mostly using to like get himself noticed by like that process and gain the interest by that aggressive guy and that eventually something and like him eventually ending up being like the team of like that aggressive guy. So also like in the eventual scenario that I'm also only bringing up the impression. So like definitely my secondary impression right now as for like right now like the announcement of like the special Squid Game to like the Squid Game after like I'm going to bring definitely the special Squid Game would be definitely right now especially like one of like the singular percent like it would be it would have been out like the big Squid Game players, especially like good players, and it would be like that an order set by like the millionaire running like the game. Like we might have especially been like gotten like totally uninvested by like the people by like the great number of people who were like good at like the playing like even like the second Squid Game. Even after returning back to the next Squid Game, only like the person running in the Squid Game him through like the monitor, like him seeing like the game performance of like the players candidates playing like the second Squid Game might have only been disappointed by like, the game performance. With like feeling like a lot of players who are like good at like Squid Games, like playing like the Squid Game might have been like the along the lines we might have felt. So like I'm also trying to might have been possibly the order of like the millionaire running like the Squid Game. Through which like he might have given the orders to like the Squid Game or just to like precisely eliminate and get weed out all the weak players and it would be precisely because of that reason that I'm also trying right now for like the special Squid Game I'm also trying would be precisely right now as for like what exactly the special Squid Game would be like I'm also trying it won't be like the third Squid Game. I'm also trying like to be like an intermediate Squid Game between like the second and third Squid Game where like I'm also trying the Squid Game would be for like to even break on the teamwork as well would be like also like an intent behind such a Squid Game. So like definitely when the temperature right now as for like what like the special Squid Game would be I'm looking right now with like gunflow like the police gunflow in like the square map like basically along with like the remaining Squid Game workers like getting onto the elevator like like definitely right now would be like the moment where like gunflows like that would be running out. This is definitely where the because like according to the order that precisely in the billionaire running like this begin we might have even through like the front man might have given to like the game of the like the triangle mask like getting onto the elevator maybe precisely to right now in order to like clear out like the weak one among like the game candidates like for the special game would be actually to like basically to force like each of like the game would be to like to make forcefully make like the game candidates like fight each other and basically so that like the only ones among like that would be like and I'm also like a time limit would be given and within that time limit for like the to get candidates to like take out like the to attack each other or to fight each other or like to take out the ones that are weak and basically for like the within that time period for like each of the student candidates to like attack each other and like the ones that will be surviving and staying alive within like the time limit will be like the only Squid Game candidates that would be able to like that would be allowed to like move on to like the third Squid Game. This would be along the lines of the like the special Squid Game would be like given to as like the order by like the person running like the billionaire running like the Squid Game might have given the order to like the front man and the front man might have given this order to exactly this to like all the Squid Game workers with like the triangle map that are right now in like the elevator uh, along with like the police is like the police is definitely my best friend. So like I was thinking right now for few possibilities like right now I was thinking either one possibility for like the gun for like the police like since like he is like the person right he has like right now won like the square mark and since I'm different like since I think like basically the square mask would be like even would be considered as like the superior to like the triangle mark and those things. So it would be definitely gun for like the task would be gun for to like the while him described as like the Korean worker with like squad master because he like the task will be up to him to like basically really involved like the special good game would be. So like I'm also running few possibilities like either for like gun left to totally run out right now with like gun along with like the remaining Squid Game workers like basically like exiting like the elevator and entering like the exercise room filled with like Squid Game candidates and they are like I'm also running gun for having to like basically explain like what like the special game is to game candidate. So like at that point, gun for will be like having like absolutely no idea at all, no knowledge at all as to like what the special game would be. And I'm also bring at that point I'm also bring like gun for getting caught with like gun for not being able to like, say what the special game would be, which like gun for should be like logically aware of like as far like when from like the point of view of like all the remaining two game workers in like the triangle will which would be besides like Gunfo at that point. So like at that point I was bringing them only capturing Gunfo with like the scenario that I was in that way like Gunfo getting captured and taken to like an interrogation room. It's like the scenario that I was only bringing for like the one possible that I was. The other possible that I was bringing like right now with like Gunfo entering like that tiny elevator done forward like the radio command like square mask like as seen as like the nearby like the remaining game workers in like the triangle mask. Them all like entering like that tiny elevator like I'm bring right now like the other person that I'm going to bring is like gun hope totally like maybe taking advantage of that like situation to like basically about to bring gun hope right now like quickly with like police fighting skills and everything like gun hope within that tiny area of like that anywhere from like Amazon gun hopefully taking out all the remaining speaking candidates that could be workers in like the triangle mass. It's like the other possibility that I'm so like I'm looking besides they have like the elevator would be opening up in front of like elevator in front of like the room where like all the speaking candidates are when that elevator would be opening up like I'm the spring like gun alone like the game worker was like the red uniform and all like stepping out of the elevator and like all those candidates like second candidates totally seeing like as like the elevator would be opening up like basically all the remaining Squid Game workers like basically with like the triangle uniform triangle mask like them all like laying that on the floor within that elevator with like only this like Squid Game worker and with like the square mask like showing up and at that point like basically Chanho like removing his mask and basically telling all the Squid Game candidates that like as to like revealing the identity of Jan Ho and in front of like all like very many Squid Game candidates, even though Jan Ho would be like obviously when I'm fully aware that all this would be like solely seen through the CCTV cameras, like only should be seen by like the people by the other rest of like people within like Squid Game of the within like the building. Like still I'm observing Jan Ho at that point, like showing up out of like the elevator and revealing his identity to like all the remaining Squid Game candidates and about the brain like comfort only thinking that basically with him making him identity revealed like basically he would be able to like help all the remaining civilian candidates and get all the civilian candidates out of like save all the civilian candidates and like get all the civilian candidates out of the civilian building. But like I'm about to bring even that intent of like comfort only backfiring with like I'm about to bring like the Squid Game candidates like by now being like totally used to like the extreme danger of like the Squid Game like them totally wanting to like stay and play this good game and wanting to like with like their whole temptation of like huge piggy bank money like about the like the good game candidates not agreeing to like go and wanting to like play the good game and not wanting to like leave the good game building. So that at that point I'm also playing like Gunfo totally once again having like luck run out and I'm also playing without much delay like I'm playing the next set of like Squid Game workers, including like from and also trying showing up through that success elevator. And before like Gunfo would give to like the one thing I was bring like Gunfo being captured by like the frontman and being taken away by like the frontman and like the remaining Squid Game workers for like interrogation, like the other possible scenarios that I was talking right now in my program. So like I was regardless of like the scenario I'm putting most likely for like gunpoint left to far now. That's like one possibility that that's like the second possibility, that's like kind of like one possibility that I'm going to bring. The only other possibility that I'm going to bring for like gunpoint to like still be able to like escape would be through that precise like wind pipe like pipeline on the ceiling. Like I'm going to bring maybe like as like gunho be like possibly taken away by like the civilian workers for like interrogation. And at that point, I'm also bring like the front man would be like going in a different direction and telling like the remaining civilian workers to like take this intruder to like that precise room, interrogation room. So like while they will be taking gun for like a gun for once again using like police skills like basically freeing himself and basically quickly going up to like that precise bathroom and through there like I'm to bring like gun for climbing onto like the air duct and basically on the ceiling and basically that way like through that giant air like tunnel like network that will be presenting like the ceiling like gun for totally temporarily for like the time being like gun for being able to like escape with like the other possible scenario that I'm expecting and like it being that much of an extreme task for like the front man as well as like the person running studio as well as for like the remaining studio workers to like essentially capture uh, gun at that point precisely because of like the time the air tunnel on like the roof like would be like actually also of like the entirety of like the huge studio building definitely my first career so like this is like only like the other single possibility through which like I'm going to bring control will be able to escape for like the time being. It's like the scenario that I'm going to do. So even after putting inside, it's like the scenario, other possible, only other possible scenario that I'm going to only bring and let us game version. Right now, like the special game, it's exactly they are right now trying to take the life of like the girl who stole like the 4 million from Sargio. Like I'm going to bring it right now would be like the point where like I'm going to bring like me Sangyon will be like totally coming to like the rescue of like that exercise girl. It's like the scenario that I was putting like and I'm not putting it though she had basically rejected like the offer of like Sangyon to like basically even though Sangyon badly wanted like up to like well, up to like work as a team with like Sangyon and even though she had like rejected that offer of, like Sangyon due to that lack of trust and but this would be like I'm considering like the point where like I'm considering Sangyon's like act of like basically saving that girl from like that aggressive guy and considering that would be like with like Sangyon putting his life on the line to like just to like save her. And considering that would be like instant that trust gaining act by Sangyon. Like that would be like instantly gaining the trust uh, of that towards like Sangyon's like basically like the scenario that I'm considering and I'm considering like after like Sangyon would be like saving her from like the aggressive guy at that point like a Sangyon would be like that absolute huge target for like the entirety of like that aggressive guy as well as like, this entire thing would be like basically targeting Sangyon. Like he would have that extreme uh, feeling of like wanting to get a revenge on like Sangyon and say take Sangyon's life at all costs. That's definitely my preference. But still, I'm considering like Sangyon right now in the current situation, like this Squid game, I'm considering Sangyon due to like Sangyon's like interference, which I'm considering to happen like solely due to that, like I'm considering like that girl being saved and then I'm considering her being beside like Sangyon and helping and defending and protecting and helping Sangyon and all of them like basically Sangyon like Ali and all of them like protecting each other is like and working together as that absolute team is like the scenario that I'm considering. But like still all of them like precisely being targeted. I think that that's a huge priority of like a target for like the aggressive guy and his like entire team to basically take the life of definitely my favorite with that absolute sense of like wanting to get revenge by like the aggressive guy and his team towards like Sangyeon and his team is like doing scenario that I'm also bring. But okay, definitely I'm never to mention that like definitely I'm predicting like the old man with like dementia, but still think it my best to mention that like him perseverance to definitely eventually only die in like an actual Squid Game. Maybe it would be like in like the third Squid Game, but like I'm perseverance like the old man eventually only die in an actual official Squid Game. And I'm perseverance definitely the old man would like dementia to like still take hide somewhere and definitely survive because like called which is Squid Game. It's like the scenario that I'm perseverance and it wouldn't just be like the old man with dementia. I'm definitely everything like that girl who stole like the 4 million from Sangyeon as well as like Sangwoo as well as like Ali all of them would definitely be surviving. Like this like special Squid Game. It's definitely one of the there will be like a set time limit and I'm after that time limit like basically the lights will be like fully turned on and I'm considering at that point like for would even like I'm considering like the set Squid Game workers would be like showing up into that set uh, room of like the Squid Game candidate and they're like I'm considering them to totally make the announcement that they need for from this point on like every night like lights won't be turned off like every night and basically like if any of you will take the life tries attempt to take the life of like another like basically that person will be like straight away taken the life of by us like the guards like along the lines is definitely my preference because like their intent behind like this game of the might out according to the order which will be only according to like the order of the person running like this game would just be to like be out like the weekends it's definitely my preference for not to like all of them to like the majority of them to like take their life and to fight attack each other and die it's definitely my preference so like so because of this reason I'm preferring And even especially with like the situation being like with like each Squid candidate dying, like the remaining surviving Squid candidate getting like more money, like I'm just thinking like the thinking like I'm also because of this reason, like I'm also the light won't be turned off from this day on, like I'm also like smite on and also like for like the remaining days, like the lights won't be at all turned off in like the night time. It's definitely my opinion. So that way also the strict rule that basically absolutely no one is allowed to like attack or take the life of each other. And if such attempt happens, like basically that person who initiates the attack would be taken the life of would be like along like the strict rule that like I'm also trying like at that point like this would be a plus to like reveal this definitely my opinion because like the remaining ones like the remaining Squid candidates who would be surviving like the switches to game would be extremely valuable and precious to like the Squid Game, the person, the billionaire running in the Squid Game, especially because like them would be seen as like that absolute strong candidate among in the Squid Game. So like the person running in the Squid Game would only be thinking along the lines of like those who survive like the Squid Game, like their Squid Game playthrough in like the first Squid Games would be like genuinely entertaining for him to watch. Would be along the lines he would be thinking. So like I'm also bringing precisely because of this reason, such strict order would be like precisely be given by game workers like precisely what like they would be like showing up through like the elevator eventually. Once like the special game would be over, it's definitely in the scenario that I was going to 300. So like the Global was 300% right now as for like the frontman like straight away like interfering and like it is given the decision to like end like the special game precisely as like the old man was like even was like shouting about like them like shouting like I was connect that which is already due to like the frontman only clearing like the people behind like this game, what they will be sharing the most would be like the positivity of like these and that in the Squid Game candidates like basically teaming up and turning ganging up against like the Squid Game workers and that way like them trying to like forcefully steal like the all the money like the glass piggy bank like basically in order to steal that steal their way into like without playing into the studio like them instead like the studio candidates taking like the path of like that absolute teamwork where like they would all be planning on teaming together and basically ganging up against like the studio workers in like the red uniform and totally so that way like forcefully that way to like steal like the money like the piggy bank like this would be like the possible scenario that I'm was interpreting like the person running like the stadium, the millionaire who be running like the stadium and like which he might have even revealed to like the frontman as for like to ensure that such an absolute teamwork never happens between like the Sodian candidates. It's certainly my reason and this will be like the reason for like the frontman right now only interfering and wanting to like end the special game precisely as like the old man was like starting to like basically shout about like so because like at that point, like the way the old man with like dementia was like shouting out like about looking like the front man might not only notice like even though it might have been just for a brief moment, I'm looking like the all that attack between amongst like the Squid candidates between each other was like happening while precisely at the moment like the old man might have shouted out and all these things like I'm looking those Squid Game candidates, even though if it were for like a brief moment, they might have totally stopped their attacking of each other and might have totally listened, might have just paid that attention to like what the old man was saying. It's definitely for but it's definitely my opinion. Even though it might have been for a brief moment, such a thing might have happened. So like that might be like that absolute fear that's the front man and like the person running the game will be having. And that would be that one thing that possibility of like basically like the Squid Game candidates forming like an absolute team with like everyone being in like a team would be like the last thing that they would want. So that they could keep like the Squid Game candidates like controlled. It's definitely my opinion. So like like definitely my personal impression that like the this would be like the precise reason for like the frontline interfering and quickly ending like the good game is definitely my opinion. So like I'm like definitely right now like all the attention of like the frontman might have right now specifically fallen onto that precise old man. So try and just like absolute just to like basically end the whole fighting and it with like that whole shouting of like the old man possibly having like had like even the tiniest bit of effect on like all the speaking candidates who are like attacking each other is what might have happened. So like that might have instantly turned the old man with dementia to that ultimate target of like the front man is definitely one of the damage. So like I was still like the fact that like the old man is like it's like extremely old and he also has dementia that might be giving that absolute false confidence to like the front man and like the person running like this to like not steadily like break the rules and steadily save the life of like the old man. try to like take the like first old man. Like they were still confident, thinking that even while they were thinking like the old man doesn't have like their target that they definitely want that as soon as possible. Still able to bring them to be or thinking along like in a constant manner as to like basically the possibility that like the old man definitely even though like the old man had basically survived like the first 10 seconds game, like still able to bring like the people running like this game, the billionaire running like this game as well as the front man like the most likely it would be like the person running like this game that is still telling like even the honor to like the front man that to not target and take the life of like the old man with like dementia, like especially since like, if he has dementia, like I was running the person, the billionaire running this game might definitely in like a sadistic manner might want to like see the old man's like dementia like kicking in during like the Squid game, and that way for like the old man to like die in one of like the upcoming Squid game in such a manner would be like that maybe we'll understand that like that's the kind of like a desire like the person running the Squid game maybe have. So it told due to that reason and that extreme offer for example to bring like the person running like the Squid game to tell to give the order to like the front match to like not take the like certainly take the life of like the old man with dementia that like basically he will be definitely dying on his ending up dying on his own like in one of the examples again. So like this is like again like I was bring through this like for shouting of like the old man he might have turned into that ultimate target and gain like that ultimate attention of like the front man right now. It's certainly my total reaction. Definitely my total reaction right now as for like the body of like the Squid Game worker. Uh, that are being learned after their time, like basically after each good game, like ambassador and including like right now after like the special good game as well, like ambassador, regardless of like the good game players being like strong players, strong and tough players or like weak players, like ambassador before their up their time, like before like the bodies would be burned, definitely the organ stealing would be definitely done each and every single time. That's definitely my personal impression. That may not be very impressive right now with like even if like the police guy like doing for like basically stealthily contacting making a contact with like uh Sun Gyun like about the about the like especially like money would be so extremely important for like Sun Gyun. Even though right now after that contact from like Gyun Ho about the Sun Gyun would be totally feeling extremely relieved especially after like the like especially if they are in like special Korean and the Sun Gyun would be like kind of a feeling I think really at least we have like someone like they believe someone from like the especially not just and not just anybody it's like especially a police person like so like I was bring since like I was like a police person I was bring like it's definitely like there will be a lot of relief right now within like Sun Gyun which I'm going to bring Sun Gyun to like share with like right now the players and the Sun Gyun sharing it that information about like unfold to like especially Ali as well as Sangwoo, as well as like his team, like Ali Sangwoo, as well as the girl, as well as like the old man. It's definitely my top three impression. So I'm about to but still about to bring especially because of like money being like so extremely crucial for like all of them. Like I'm about to bring like maybe like all of them like still not wanting to like basically even though they would be like only feeling safe deep down with the fact that like police person has infiltrated into like the studio building like I'm about to bring still like I'm considering like eventually I'm considering like still I'm considering them not wanting to like really actually help like that because like still I'm considering each of the team members of like the Sangyon definitely would want to like continue playing like the game and because of like their extreme need for all that huge money to like set everything right in their life and those things. So because of that like I'm sure even after like Sangyon was revealing about like Gonfo's presence in like the police guy Gonfo's presence to this like Sangyon's thing like even then I'm considering none of them even though deep down there being like a certain bit of like a really within them like but there was still none of them like wanting to like basically have anything to do with like gun ho. And I was they would be like since like gun ho is like a police like they would be obviously thinking along the lines that like basically gun ho would be like trying to bring down like the people running the experience. So like if that happens since like if that happens like Sangyeon and his team won't be getting like the money at all like enough for like putting their life at such extreme risk and playing like the video like the since like they won't be like getting any money at all at that point. And also bring like them like only maybe even deciding to like basically Sangwoo and also bring telling the decision to like Sangyeon to like not cooperate with like Gunho. If like they want the reward money like they would have to like not cooperate with like Gunho at the end of the night like the decision that Sangwoo would be taking. And I'm also predicting like a stealth further eventually like the future further stealthy conversation between like Gunho towards like Sangyeon. Where like I'm possibly like Gunho telling Sangyeon to like help Gunho Therefore, at that point, I'm also bringing maybe like naively thinking that with like this extreme range of situation, in all these range of things happening in like the Squid Game building, like basically with that Gunfo from basically secretly interact and like offers with help to like Sangyeon, like basically Sangyeon as well will be totally like the same manner would be reciprocating and accepting his help and would be helping him back and basically stop like the culprits behind like who are running the Squid Game. But like I'm going at that point would be when like Gunfo would be getting like that shocking realization that like even Sangion like doesn't want to like the Squid Game to end because of only due to like him desperately wanting all that future reward money. So like at that point I was bringing that gun for only pulling out another strategy, and that strategy would be precisely the strategy of like basically a false offer of like an extremely huge reward money if Sangion helps Gunho basically bring down like the people running like the bring down and catch up like the people running Squid Game. The police will be offering Sangion like that point like a huge reward money would be along like a total for life that I'm possible and expecting out of like Sangion to then from the Gunho to like 10 Sangion just to that metric Sangion into like helping Gunho, especially because of Gunho being like a police, like for him like the ultimate highest priority. It wouldn't even matter to him whether like Sangion gets like wins the full game and get all the money or not. Like for him, like even more important than all that will be to like ensuring that more that does of like all these people doesn't happen and the people behind running the full game being brought to justice will be like the only priority and in like Gunpo's mind. So like I was bringing that into like him totally freaking like Sangyeon and I was bringing Zion as well as like maybe like all of the remaining team members like possibly maybe falling for that tricking by Gunpowder. But I'm not sure maybe it being like Sangu alone like basically would be like not fully believe that money reward offer from Gunpowder. Definitely by the best. So like I'm considering definitely I'm considering like while Sanjon and others will be totally falling for that uh like false reward money offer from like Gunpowder. I'm considering like Sangyeon and like the remaining of like Sangyeon's team like from that point on helping steadily helping the steadily helping Gunho. And I'm considering like Gunho as well like doing that good does to like basically trying to like basically see like the upcoming Squid games like find out what the upcoming Squid game is beforehand, but like still like the security would be extremely tight and I'm considering like Gunho each and every single time Gunho like not being able to like find out beforehand as to like what the next Squid game would be. And so like I'm considering it as for like San given at this team would be like approaching and attempting each of them to Squid game without knowing what that Squid game would be. It's definitely totally blindly in a blind manner. It's like the scenario that I'm still then from the thing and moving forward is like the scenario that I'm delivering and my president. And I'm delivering like eventually with like and I'm delivering eventually Ganho San Gion and his team like okay helping Ganho out Ganho helping San Gion and his team out like and then putting that absolute attempt to like bring down like the people behind like this Korean, but like I'm also trying eventually in that from like eventually that whole bond as well would be formed between like Ganho as well as like Sangyeon and all of them. So but still I'm also trying eventually for like Ganho to definitely get captured and found out and to like be interrogated and like I'm also trying Ganho not at all like only like would have like the necessary training to survive an interrogation. So like I was wondering, Dagmo not revealing anything at all to like the people, to the front man or like the people that will be interrogating Dagmo at that point. And like at that point, like with them not being able to get out any information out of the Dagmo, like I was wondering when taking the life of Dagmo, which like they might have even planned on like taking the life would be at that even at that point would be planning on taking the life of Gunpo after like interrogating and getting the information out of Gunpo. But still, I'm considering the scenario to be like Gunpo not revealing any information to them and basically them from man and his team like taking like the life of Gunpowder like the scenario that I was saying. But like I'm bring by then like I'm bring after like walking like the in like the path of like justice I'm bring like uh, and working together with like Gunpowder until that point I'm bring even though Sandion and his team would be like eventually possibly finding out about like Gunpowder having fought and having died like I'm still about to bring at that point like Sandion and his team to be like a to have that force change in their character. That basically is them totally fighting to basically from that point on, like them continuing the fight to like bring down like the people who would be like running like this billion and continuing like and even with like the left of like gun for like I'm praying for like the scenario to be as if like gun was like passed on to be fast to Sangyeon and his team, and then still keeping up their effort to like basically find out like the perpetrators behind the people behind like running links to game and all that. It's like series of scenarios that have been put on the product and that is very impressive. Like the claimant of Graham version right now as for like Ali asking like the old man this like the claimant his name like I was right now. Maybe I was trying to about this. I thought it's lying about his like original name because like the old man would put like they would be clearing like the possibility of like basically he would be like not wanting like Sangyeon to like find out that he's like Sangyeon's father especially because of how much like Sangyeon's mother had basically tried to like protect and shield and keep Sangyeon away from his father due to the fear of like Sangyeon like developing like the same betting habit as like his father. It's definitely my opinion. So like maybe due to that reason I'm like maybe like that person like the old man with like dementia maybe like him possibly lying to like in the presence of the Sangyeon and all of them like him only lying about his name and saying a fake false name is like the scenario that I'm considering and I'm considering maybe also like a remote kind of like a possibility that I'm considering is that maybe it would be by the first thing most likely for it to be like after eventually like the old man with like dementia would be dying that I'm considering like Sangyeon like probably or recollection when thinking of the memories of like him Sangyeon spending time with like the old man un- until that point of his death, like I'm going to bring a time, you're remembering all the dialogue that the old man had put out until that point, told to like Sangyeon all of their past conversation, and eventually it totally clicking for Sangyeon as to like basically the old man with like dementia but I actually at that point like actually taking example of father especially when the dementia and then for different definitely even though right now those saying like the old man with like dementia to like totally right now lie in front of like Sangyeon and all of them and explain that basically about his like what his name is like I'm not correct still even though he would be saying it's a fake name I'm not correct it could be kind of like rhyming or like kind of like in a way similar to his like original name it's definitely not going to be so like that way like I'm not bring maybe like that way like Sangyeong like basically eventually like basically realizing that as well after like the old man finish I would leave the dying as well as maybe like I'm exploring like the path like I was bringing at some point like Sangyeong might have when usually when Sangyeong back since like Sangyeong was a child like I'm bringing but Sangyeong mother might have taken Sangyeong away from like Sangyeong father like since when I was Sangyeong might have been far too young back then, and considering as Sangyeong grew up, like Sangyeong might have even asked like Sangyeong's mother about like his father. And then considering Sangyeong's mother might have always kept like kept trying to like evade that question, and then considering that might have never revealed anything about like Sangyeong's father, but like I'm considering eventually like as Sangyeong grew up, like at some point like Sangyeong might have like persistently like kept on asking Sangyeong's mother so much that I'm remembering Sangyeong's mother might have felt forced at that point that or like he might have accidentally might have been so extremely embraced like each time Sangyeong will be asking of his father like each time he will be remembering like Sangyeong's father like she would be like remembering the thoughts of that basically like Sangyeong's father being like the first reason for like Sangyeong as well eventually ending up in like the ending up gaining like the betting habit. It's impossible definitely won't be due to like Sangyeong's father, but it will be precisely due to like the billionaire who will be running with this game like would be like stealthily might have engineers have done things to ensure that Sangyeong eventually develop such a betting habit to like eventually trap Sangyeong in like this video. But like I'm looking at Sangyeong is going to be growing up and having like the betting habit at that point I was looking at Sangyeong's mother would be totally thinking that like it could be solely due to like Sangyeong's father, like that Sangyeong right now has this like whole betting habit and everything. So like I was looking at Sangyeong would be growing up like Sangyeong at that after gaining after like having the betting culture like Sangyeong might have at some point like might have repeatedly questioned like Sangyeong's mother as for like who Sangyeong's father is like and he might have repeatedly questioned Sangyeong's mother to the point that Sangyeong's mother might have totally lost it and might have totally angrily shouted out about like Sangyeong's father being like just the name of that Sangyeong's father, you know, it's definitely meant to be. So like that way like I'm considering like even to the person that Sangyeong might have never not at all forgotten about like that name alone of that Sangyeong's father. Like Sangyeong mother might have not been anything other than just the name of like Sangyeong's father. So like Sangyeong is definitely meant to be. So like that way Sangyeong even to the person will be like might have never forgotten that first name. So like I'm remembering it eventually once like all my dementia will be like lying in one of the games I'm remembering to be at that point when Sangam recollects back and remember back the memories with like of all the conversation with like the foreman. At that point, Sangam eventually realizing how that is the name that he the old man had said that right now would be telling Sangyeon as his name, like how it's like only rhyming with that precise name that Sangyeon's mother had basically that's, that name is not the same. That's still like how exactly it's like only rhyming with that precise name that Sangyor or like whom, the name of like Sangyor's father. That basically Sangyor's mother might have been like the father might have told Sangyor. And that way, like at that point, probably Sangyor shockingly realizing that like the old man who died actually was like Sangyor's father. Sangyor realizing that in like the future, it's like scenario that I'm making of the drawing. I'm able to be sure. Like the name of the movie I'm mentioned right now with like the old man with like dementia right now struggling to like totally say his name. And possibly we definitely solely due to like Sangyeon's like the Sangyeon definitely due to son and like Sangyeon's presence right there would be like the solely for like him totally struggling to like say his name. It's definitely my position. Like one main factor would be like Sanjo's father, like even though Paul managed like dementia would be like Sanjo's father, like he might have lived his like entire life, even though like he might have had like the very same kind of like a dating habit like Sanjo, like uh, still he might have been like the kind of person who might have like for whom like lying would be like extremely hard. He might have been someone who might have like found like lying to be like an extreme hard thing for him to do. It's definitely my personal impression. So like I'm wondering that might have been like one huge factor right now in like the old man right now struggling to like say his like struggling and taking time to like really say his name is definitely my personal impression and it would definitely not be due to his like dementia at all. It would definitely have told it is like his son, he was like presence right there. And Sangyo finding out about like him like being like Sangyo's father. If he like the possibility of that if he says his like actual full name, since it's hard for him to lie like the possibility of him actually saying his like full name in front of like Sangyo and that way Sangyo recognizing him as like his father. Like basically which would be like since like that would definitely be something that the last thing that Sangyo's mother would want which like Sanjay's father would be well and fully aware of. So to be exactly because of this reason that he might have been gotten stressed out at like Ali asking him like the old man his name is definitely my best friend. And so like the film was very episode right as for like aggressive like Jan Diopsi that basically keep lying about like basically the doctor team member like basically knowing like the appearance with him beforehand like basically there's a reason for like Jan Diopsi that Diopsi will be hiding that critical information from that the female member would be the facility to like him totally they also totally feel that except for like the doctor like every remaining members of his team including that woman like they also would be seeing like the exact same as like expendable like until like the very end it's definitely matters to them so and as for like the doctor member like him like would be someone that they also would be only seeing as like someone he's going to like expend and take the life of the after like winning like the two games so like until then to really use like the team up with like the doctor and use like the information that the doctor will be having after like the upcoming Squid Games like to that way to like use that to the of course like advantage to be able to like make it all the way to like the Squid Game would be what we also will be planning. It's definitely my big famous. So like I'm looking the also would be wanting all that huge quantity of money in like that game and all for himself. Like okay, so there's a source game service that would want all that money for just himself and he won't be even willing to like even share it to not even like the doctor definitely my preference. And I'm preferring to be like the very same thing for like the doctor member as well. Like especially if you would be like only planning on to eventually most likely eventually like right before like the 6:30 and like I'm preparing like onto the doctor's plan like to make to get make all that thingy that huge quantity of money is shown like basically the doctor's plan would be to like a team up with like also until like and after completely completing that game and while DO2 is like going up to that safe location to basically once again like to do the organ procedures and all that. Like at that point, DO2 we're totally planning on basically taking some things that like some sort of like a adju or something like something like that's like harmful to health. Like basically taking some kind of like such a thing and basically to totally it seems like a doctor like he would be like and since like DO2 is not a doctor at all. So like he would be only planning on using his like knowledge of the doctor to totally trick DO2 into basically making like it like to basically in the name of like treating DO2 injury after that. And especially since like uh, none of like the game workers are even providing with like any sort of treatment at all after these good games. Like I'm just bring like secondly the doctor would be totally will be partly obvious to the doctor that like by the time like they will be making it all the way to like the after by the time they will be completing like the Squid Game like definitely even the doctor would be sustaining a lot of injuries. So like I was worried the doctor's plan would be to like safely and properly treat the doctor all the way to like the fourth Squid Game as well. But like precisely after like the completion of the Squid Game, like the doctor would be totally planning on like totally like in the name of treating the also to like totally do something that would be totally like harmful for like the also for the also self, and basically that would like totally that way affect the also performance in like this good game, so that like the also would be like failing in like the good game and buying it like this good game is definitely my opinion. So that like that doctor could have all the money to himself. It would be like that doctor plan is definitely my opinion, and I'm definitely protecting for like the doctor also planning on basically lying to even the also about like what like the Squid Game would be. So because that like that way to like increase the possibility of like the also as well tying in like the six Squid Game, so that like him alone knowing like what the six Squid Game would be, like him alone would be able to like win the six Squid Game would be what like the plan of like the doctor is definitely my opinion. And as for like the also his plan would be to like basically you would be totally seeing like the woman member of like his team as well as like all the remaining other members of his team except for like the doctor. Like we would be only seeing ever since like the doctor revealed the critical information that he knows what like the upcoming games are to like the also from that point on they also might have been only seeing straight from that point on like they also might have only seen like the doctor alone as like the only valuable member of his like team until completing this game where like he would be planning on even they also would be planning on taking the life of like the doctor, and that way making all the getting all the money for things that would be like the also plan. It's definitely my personal theory and prediction. So like until then, so like basically like lessons like how the second Squid Game like I think like basically that uh woman member of like Teoku's team like basically had helped Teoku out like since like Teoku would be like right now it would be partly obvious for Teoku that like she's like madly in love with like Teoku, so like to totally take Teoku would be like religiously planning to like totally take advantage of her emotions to like basically make her help DFO in each and every single good game up ahead. And even on the added on top of like the added advantage of that, he also like through like the rocket would be able to like know which would be like the next game beforehand. Even through that like with like so for DFO to like lessen the possibility of like taking in sort of like serious injuries as well. Like they would be planning on like keeping this like team, and that way like using like all of the remaining team members to like this advantage so that like he could move on to like the make them help so that like he could like only move on to the next two games without taking much of an injury for the mentioned that like they also according to like they also plan they also be totally wanting like all the remaining members of the select team except for like the offer to like basically slowly die off one by one as that they also be representing to Squid Game. It's definitely my opinion. And that would be the total reason for like him purposefully keeping that information that the doctor we know like the acronym games beforehand, so either from all of the his remaining team members, especially and the same thing with the doctor as well. The doctor as well would be only wanting like the in the team, like the remaining members to like die off one after another, like as they from the through each against that like so that like both the doctor and the officer would be totally naively assuming and in an overconfident manner would be thinking that like the precise and only two people that would be making it to like the sixth good game and would be attempting like the sixth good game would be just the officer and the doctor. So that like at that point from doctor point of view, doctor would be totally thinking that like the also would be dying in like sixth game, and from like the also point of view, they also would be totally thinking that like after completing like the sixth good game, like the also could like easily take the life of like the doctor and make all the money from himself. Like so, this would be along the line like there will be both strategies. It's definitely my personal way and for sure.